Welcome back to the Bitcoin Layer. I'm Nik Bhatia with my associate, Augustine Carrasco. Today, we welcome Ken Sim. He is the mayor of Vancouver in Canada, British Columbia, and Ken is a Bitcoin maximalist trying to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet from a strategic perspective for the city of Vancouver. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Ken, let's start with your background. You are a businessman. You came over into politics to run for mayor of Vancouver. Why did you do that? What was your ambition there?
Long story short, we have four kids, four boys, and they didn't see a future for themselves in Vancouver. And it extended beyond affordability of housing, which I know pretty much every city on the planet's struggling with right now, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. They just wanted a cool place where they can live, where there was a ton of opportunity, and their friends were going to hang out as well. And I felt that we were going in the wrong direction in the city of Vancouver, so that was enough to put down our tools in our other life and come here and try to make this place better. And one thing I will add on that is I'm not a politician. I have no aspirations to be a premier or prime minister or the equivalent of a governor or president. And so we get to do what we believe is right, what's for the best of Vancouver, and that's what we're doing, and that's why we're having a conversation about Bitcoin.
As Bitcoin's role in the global financial landscape evolves, understanding its potential impact on your wealth becomes increasingly crucial. Whether we see a measured adoption or accelerated hyper-Bitcoinization, being prepared for various scenarios can make the difference between merely participating and truly optimizing your position. This is why Unchained developed the Bitcoin Calculator, a sophisticated modeling tool that helps you visualize and prepare for multiple Bitcoin futures. Beyond traditional retirement planning, it offers deep insight into how different adoption scenarios could transform your wealth trajectory. What sets this tool apart is that it's integrated with Unchained IRA, the only solution that combines the tax advantages of a retirement account with self-custody of Bitcoin. In any future state, maintaining control of your Bitcoin keys remains fundamental to your Bitcoin strategy. Explore your potential futures at unchained.com/TBL. Don't write your seed on paper. It's estimated that so much Bitcoin is lost forever, and the main culprit, the main reason is poor seed phrase security. This is why we use Stamp Seed, a DIY kit that enables you to hammer your seed phrases into titanium plates using professional stamping tools. These plates are heat resistant up to 3,000 degrees, fireproof, crush proof, and time proof. They're compact and easy to hide, and they can be used in your single sig or multi-sig setups. Make sure you go check them out today at stampseed.com and use code TBL for 15% off of your order. So why Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin the center of your platform? Is it one of the most important things to you for the future of the city? How did you get into Bitcoin? If you can tell us how we arrived at you trying to argue for a Vancouver Bitcoin position on the balance sheet.
Yeah, okay, so we'll go way back. I'll give you my history on Bitcoin. So like pretty much everyone else, except for some of the OGs in Bitcoin, I was a pessimist. I have a finance background. I'm a chartered accountant, former investment banker. I was in private equity. I'm a business person. And so, obviously I'm the smartest person on the planet. And when my boy came to me and said, Dad, I want to buy Bitcoin, I literally said, you touch that shit and I'm going to punch you in the throat. Obviously, I wasn't going to do that. My kid's way bigger than me. And obviously, I'm not the smartest person on the planet, not by a long shot. But that was my view in the time. And then I started to do work in the space. I got curious. I read 12, actually more than 12 books on the topic and adjacent, areas. Spoke with a good friend of mine, Jeff Booth. He actually orange pilled me. And I know he hates it when I say orange pilled, but he opened my eyes to it. And I went from pessimist to curious to I was a fan to now I'm an evangelist. And that's my history around Bitcoin. And as an aside, I actually read Layered Money as well back in 2021. Big fan as well. So, no, it wasn't part of our platform. Like a lot of the Bitcoiners out there, I'm sure this has changed over the last couple of months. But for the most part, there's a whole group of individuals that are closeted. It's not worth people's effort to actually bring this up because they get ostracized, and so never brought it up. It wasn't part of our platform, and I always felt that at some point in time it would be smart. It'd be good policy to bring it onto our reserves because, as all the Bitcoiners know, our currencies all across the planet are getting debased, and it's a race that we cannot win. And Bitcoin, once you come to that conclusion from first principles perspective, then what are the assets that you can invest in that will actually give you a fighting chance? And gold's a great option, but it's the second best option, in my opinion. The best one by a long shot is Bitcoin. And so, oh, by the way, I do have to qualify. Everything I say here is not investment advice. I'm not qualified to give investment advice. These are just my own opinions. And as all Bitcoiners should do, and we do, don't trust, verify.
Absolutely. And we are also not a investment advice provider here at the Bitcoin Layer. We are here providing our own research and opinion across these asset classes. Augustine, take it away.
So I do have an interesting question, and that is, what was it like admitting to your son that you were actually wrong after you've told him to not touch Bitcoin at all?
I felt shame.
Yeah, exactly.
It was painful, but you know what? It's okay to admit you're wrong. And I wish more people would do that. I wish we had a situation like an environment where we celebrate the fact that, we try stuff and we're wrong, and it's okay to be curious and non-positional. And I think if we do that, we all win. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people still haven't unlearned what they've learned in the past, and it's slowing us down big time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think all of us, as far as Bitcoin goes, we all start as skeptics, and then we end up just diving deeper and find out what Bitcoin really is about. So yeah, no. And one other question, I guess, moving on more to Bitcoin and making Vancouver a Bitcoin friendly city. Could you give us a little bit more of the details of what that Bitcoin motion that was recently passed means for Vancouver, what it means for the future of Vancouver in general?
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not a politician, even though I'm the mayor of Vancouver. I believe in authenticity. We're not going to play politics here, so I'll give you, the real scoop. Let's acknowledge again that we're living in a place where, you get ostracized still if you, talk about Bitcoin and the merits of it, because a lot of people aren't up to speed. So when we filed the motion, we filed a motion that said, let's explore, how we can incorporate Bitcoin into the city and make it a Bitcoin friendly city. And usually when we do that, it's no brainer. There's no energy around it because literally we're just saying, hey, let's look at it. With this one, it was a little different because of the negative connotations around Bitcoin and the reward system in politics. We had a couple of counselors that were apprehensive just because they weren't up to speed, but also, they would get pounded if they brought it up because it's a taboo topic for a lot of people if you just don't understand it. And so it was actually a lot more difficult than we thought to get that motion to explore. But we got through that. The next one is when our amazing team at the City of Vancouver, they're going back and they're going to look at it and they're going to come up with, a report as to what this looks like. It'll be interesting to see where the report comes in. While we have an amazing, by the way, I stand behind every single person at the City of Vancouver, and we have an amazing team. And when I acknowledge that various people will be at different stages of their Bitcoin journey, and so, there might be some cognitive biases embedded in that. Not saying it is, I'm just playing out all the different outcomes that could happen. If the report comes out, great, awesome, then we vote on it. If it comes out and if it doesn't hit the mark on certain things, then I'll file an amendment saying, no, actually, I believe based on all the work I've done this is where we should go, and then we have to put it to a vote. And so if we get through all of that, then we have to go to the province. The province, they govern how we operate. It's this thing called the Vancouver Charter. Those are the rules how we run the city by, and only they can change it to add Bitcoin. And they've literally said no, they're not going to change it. And this isn't, I'm not dunking on the province. They're doing exactly what they should do. In terms of, I don't think you want municipalities running around everywhere doing whatever they think. And so they're taking a cautious approach, and it's up to us to get the province up to speed as to why this isn't quack technology. It's actually the most amazing thing out there, and it's actually going to save us all and bring prosperity and save the environment and all that good stuff. And so, like I said, once again, and I know I'm rambling a lot here, but it's important. This wasn't an exercise in virtue signaling. We didn't just follow motion to get a couple of press hits. We truly believe in it. And you know what? It's a hill worth dying on. I think this will set the city up for the next 100 years. And if that means that I have to take a lot of political shots and I lose the next election, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, and even at the federal level, I know some politicians have mentioned Bitcoin, and they have gotten some backlash from it. So I guess moving a little bit more into that, as far as you orange pilling other councillors or other members, how do you go about doing that?
Well, you engage the community. I joked earlier. That was a joke, by the way. I'm the smartest guy on the planet. Very far from it. In fact, if I'm the smartest person in the room, that room's in a lot of trouble. So, no, we brought out the whole community, and we've asked the community to help us educate our people. Jeff always talks about meeting people where they are. Let's meet people where they are, and let's get them up to speed. And if we do that, that goes a long way in getting more people onto the program and understanding this and looking at it as something incredible. And Peter Thiel, he wrote this book, 0 to 1. Right. This is a classic 0 to 1 thing. It's never stuff like this has never existed before. So it's okay to, question everything. It looks really weird, but it's absolutely amazing. And when we can get people up to speed on it, more people, like you've been on this journey as well. You've gone to pessimist to the fact that we're on this podcast probably means you're an evangelist, and you're probably pushing the message everywhere.
My wife always likes to remind me that she asked me what is Bitcoin several years before I ever dove into the rabbit hole, because we are all skeptics, I think, first. I want to connect a couple dots here, Ken.
Yeah.
Jeff Booth's book about deflation and a deflationary world versus an inflationary system that we're built in is foundational for me. And when somebody asked me very recently, who's the one person I should read right now after reading your book, I said The Price of Tomorrow, because the reason is that Jeff is one of the few 0 to 1 thinkers on this specific topic. So just combining the Thiel book with the Jeff Booth concept here, that I genuinely feel the way that Jeff explained a deflationary world versus an inflationary system and that juxtaposition, it is so foundational to my thinking. You were going to say something, Ken?
No, look, I totally agree, and it was a great book. A couple of things. So I feel relative to most people, I'm pretty far into this journey, and I'd be an expert. On the flip side, I consume a ton of information in this space, and I'm continuously learning. And I feel that I'm probably at 1/100th of 1% of where I should be when it comes to this. The space is just so big, and it's evolving all the time. And that's really a message to everyone out there that's listening to this podcast. No one's an expert. Very far from it, and it's just this incredible space. The other thing that really hit me, and I knew that for years that this thing is finite, right? There's only going to be 21 million, and that's if they find all the coins, in the locked wallets. But it only hit me in the last couple of weeks what that actually means. It's the greatest, like I knew it was the greatest invention ever, but literally there's nothing else on the planet that can say it's finite. Like it is such a big idea and it's so profound, and we're just scratching the surface on this one.
Absolutely. I love the image of the Palm Islands being built off the coast of Dubai to express that even real estate itself is not finite. My question to you, my next question is on the topic of meeting people where they are. I'm writing my second book, Bitcoin Age, and my goal there is to do that. It's to really meet people where they are. And as you say, strip away that doubt. So you say that you go and engage with the community. More specifically, though, what are some of the things that you have to strip away from people's preconceived notions? You mentioned the environment. I'm sure that that's a big one. But what are the number one, number two things that you feel like you can get quick victories on stripping away some of that doubt toward Bitcoin?
Well, I think first of all, it depends on the person. And there are a lot of really smart people who just dump on this. But I think where where you get commonality. So I actually take it away from Bitcoin. First, it's like, all right, ignore Bitcoin. Are your groceries, have they increased? Have they doubled in the last 5 years? Do you see that there's an affordability challenge, not just in Vancouver? And by the way, we have a whole host of issues that we can control that we will work on to make it more affordable. But when you have an affordability crisis in almost every single medium and large size city on the planet, it's probably not just a supply demand issue. And so people say, yeah, we feel it. It's like, yeah, you know what? Our currency is getting debased. They're printing more money than ever before. And then we talk about how the US, there's a $2 trillion deficit. And for them to solve it, literally, you have to cut two of the three, which is all the interest payments on the debt, which means you default on the debt. You have to cut the entire military budget, which means there's a whole new world order and there's like instability in countries across the planet. Or you cut Medicare and Medicaid, and which means you probably have a civil war. And by the way, you have to cut two of the three. So the problem, it's not solvable. So people all understand that. And then you go, okay, well, great. So how do we solve it? And one more example I give is, I talk about how housing prices in Vancouver haven't changed since 1930 when priced in gold. And so I pull up the stat, in 1995, the average house price in Vancouver was $500,000. And in 2022, it was, 2.43 million bucks, or it went up 383%. And people understand that. And then when I share with them, if you had to buy with gold ounces, in 1995, you paid 958 ounces for that house. And in 2022, you paid 957 ounces. So it remained flat. And so they get the image of, wait a sec, things haven't gone up in value. It just costs more in fiat currency. And they all get it. Then we go to, well, how do you protect yourself? Gold, great, right? Like buy gold. And it's not bad, but gold's just a really shitty analog version of Bitcoin. It's like comparing a fax machine with an AI bot. There's no comparison, right? Like gold's still inflationary. You can produce about 1.7% of it per year if the gold price runs. It's not censor resistant per se. Like armies can just come in and take it away. As an example, it's not transportable. It's not divisible, and Bitcoin solves all of that. And then people with that, I feel that gets people to the curious stage, and then what they do after that, it's really up to them.
It's so important because I'm excited to hear you say it, because that is how I've introduced it in my book, is affordability. I start with, what was the median housing price? What was the median salary? How much did you have to earn to afford that house? Obviously, both of those numbers have skyrocketed, but which one more than the other? Unfortunately, the house price has gone up much more than the wage or the income, making affordability a big challenge. Go ahead, Augustine.
Yeah, no, I think that living in Vancouver, you cannot help but to escape the housing is just completely unaffordable, especially for undergraduate students. Coming out of university, it's really difficult. So I guess touching on this affordability issue, I recently ran a quick back of the napkin sort of analysis on housing in Seattle versus housing in Vancouver.
Yep.
And I found that the top earners in Vancouver are able to afford almost the same amount of house, maybe a little bit more, than bottom earners in Seattle. So I guess my question to you is, how exactly does Bitcoin or making Vancouver a Bitcoin friendly city actually help people in affordable housing in general?
Yeah, multiple ways. First of all, if we can't run the city, we can't run the finances. There's going to be a situation, like with the current debasement, if the real rate of inflation is, let's say, 15%, we're not increasing property taxes by 15% a year, or we get hammered. Basically, it doesn't work. All our businesses fail. All that, increase in property taxes, what have you, gets embedded into the building of new homes, right? And so it doesn't work. And so we have to shore up our balance sheet. We, as a city, we run in the same circles as everyone else when it comes to, paying people, buying, concrete, rebar, what have you. And so if if we have $3.2 billion in fiat currency sitting in fixed income instruments, getting 88 basis points to 4.75%, running out 28 years. That's absolutely crazy. We're losing, between $400 and $500 million of purchasing power every single year, but people don't see the problem. So by bringing Bitcoin there, we stabilize our balance sheet, and we actually, we'll see it run up if it plays out the way it should, and that helps us be able to run our city. The other thing, and you hit the nail on the head, when you look at Seattle, and look, I love Vancouver, they have a more business-friendly environment. Right, there's more opportunity there, and that's the other part of the affordability challenge. It's not just the cost of housing, but how much are you making? And so when we become a Bitcoin-friendly city, guess what? Bitcoiners from around the world, all of a sudden, Vancouver's in play. And they can start, like, we're living in a world of sovereign individuals, and they can come here, they can do whatever they want, wherever they want, and they choose Vancouver because the ecosystem's here. And it's already here. That's the crazy thing. Vancouver is one of the leaders in Bitcoin. Like, you have a bunch of OGs here, like the first Bitcoin ATM was in Vancouver. There's a whole ecosystem here. And so we're building upon that. And so, we do these things, not only does it make it easier to run our city, but we create an environment where people can succeed. The other thing is, if we can start to change the narrative. Once again, I am not giving investment advice, especially on this one. But I talk about our kids and how they didn't see a future for themselves in Vancouver. That really means everyone. Okay, and I speak with people all the time who have already given up on trying to buy a house in Vancouver. They just don't see a future. Does that sound familiar, Augustine?
100%, yes.
So if you believe in the future of Bitcoin, right? Let's say the average house price, or the house that you want to buy, is $1.5 million today, or 10, that's Canadian, so 10 Bitcoin as of today. And let's say we think that house prices are going to double, right, to 3 million in the next 10 years, whatever, right, or 7 years, let's say. Now, if we think that it's only going to cost 1 Bitcoin to buy a house in 7 years, because Bitcoin's going to be trading at whatever, 8 to 10 million bucks, you can literally synthetically buy a house right now for 150 grand Canadian. Once again, I'm not giving you investment advice, but basically the way I would play it is, if I believe that, I'd go, all right, I'm going to take out a loan for 150 grand. I'm going to buy a Bitcoin. My carry cost, even if I'm paying 7% in interest, is whatever, 10,500 per year. And if it runs, guess what? I literally bought a house in the future for 150 grand, totally levered. That's one way of playing the Vancouver. Like, if you believe in all this stuff, all of a sudden there's an opportunity for people who have zero hope in buying a house in the current system, opting out of the system and going to a Bitcoin standard and making it happen. Once again, not investment advice. I'm not qualified to give investment advice, and that's if everything plays out that way. But we have to be innovative or give up on the dream of living in Vancouver.
You don't have to be giving investment advice to actually look at the trailing returns, right? Everybody knows that has invested that trailing returns are not indicative of future returns, but we can look at trailing returns. And the numbers are that if you hold Bitcoin for 3.5 years or longer, you're unlikely to be in a loss. If you hold it for 5 years or longer, you have the potential of 10xing your money. And if you can hold it for 10 years, you have the potential to 100x your money. That's again trailing, but that you must bring that context to people to even pique their interest, I think sometimes.
Yeah. And, and I guess where I'm going with this, I was trying to answer your question, but the bigger thing here, and the reason why Bitcoin is so important, I believe, to bring it onto the balance sheet, we are doing everything we can to make this place more efficient. We brought outsiders to come in, rip through our financial statements. We're incredibly fiscally responsible. We're looking at different revenue sources that aren't taxes that will add good revenues to the city of Vancouver. And if we do all of that, I still believe we don't outrun the debasement of our currencies, and we're flagging it. I don't know. We like when you live in a system that's debasing at 10 to 15% a year, and the effects of compounding. None of us is outrunning that stuff, and so we just want to flag that because we know we're going to have a problem in 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess to touch on a little bit more on that balance sheet aspect of things, I know at least at Sauder or my business school, every pushback that I get is, you can't really use Bitcoin in general across the city or whatever. You can't really do much with Bitcoin as far as a medium of exchange goes. Yeah. So I guess in terms of making Vancouver a more Bitcoin friendly city, besides putting some Bitcoin on the balance sheet, could I maybe one day pay for a parking ticket with Bitcoin? Is that sort of the vision that you have for maybe 5 years?
I think that's inevitable in terms of, when I truly believe that the world's going to go to a Bitcoin standard. So we wake up 10 years from now, it's going to be, remember when people used to print pieces of paper and put ink on them and people would ascribe value to it? It's completely ridiculous, right? So we're going to be there regardless. It doesn't matter. Like Bitcoin doesn't care what anyone thinks about it. It's going to do its thing. So the race is right to, how do we get there sooner? The payment side of thing hasn't been a massive push for us because, the tax laws in Canada, everything's a capital transaction. And even if we're first to market, it's not a big deal. It's not a big winner. Whereas, getting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, I personally would have waited a little while longer because it would have been easier. But with what happened down in the States during the election and the U.S., contemplating, in fact, it was before that. It was in Nashville where Senator Loomis brought up, the Bitcoin reserve, the strategic Bitcoin reserve. If and when that happens, we're not talking about $100,000 Bitcoin anymore, and it's gonna move real fast. So we had to go after this right after Trump won the election, because the window of opportunity, the big opportunity, is closing really fast. Are we, if we go there, are we buying Bitcoin at 5 million? If you truly believe in it, absolutely. But I'd rather, as the mayor of the city of Vancouver, we'd rather pick it up at 100,000. Right, and see that run up because we get way more leverage now than we will 3 years from now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we think about the hand-to-hand merchant adoption of Bitcoin, it will come last, because in the end, people will understand that they have to accept the money that people have and are choosing. and it'll almost be the last thing. So, when I'm talking about Bitcoin to people and they bring up medium of exchange, you have to take it a step back and really explain that doesn't happen first. It actually happens last. Ken, a quick question on British Columbia. You've mentioned dealing at the provincial level. What is there any optimism at the provincial level, people that you're working with? And maybe you can talk about some of the mining projects that are in British Columbia, because we know of a few companies that are mining in BC.
Yeah, look, and I don't get political here. We work with Victoria, we work with Ottawa, whoever's in office, and we have a great working relationship with the province. And they're great. Like they've been so helpful on multiple fronts. Let's just be super authentic here. The reward system isn't out there to, get provincial and federal politicians to go after this thing. And so a lot of people out there still think this is, quack science, so to speak. And, so I think it's up to us to educate our elected officials. And obviously I can't do that. We have a theory or a saying, you can't be a prophet in your own country. But if, the community comes out and lets our elected officials know that this is actually the real deal, this is super important, and this is how the narrative is completely wrong, and this is great for the province. I do believe that we can sway them sooner rather than later. So talk about mining projects. We have this big pool called Kitts Pool. It's it's 137 and a half meters long. It's outdoors. It's this iconic pool in Canada, and one of the most iconic pools in all of the world. And right now it's a cost center because you have to heat the pool. And with Bitcoin mining, guess what? You could actually turn it into a profit center. You can mine, and the heat generated from the rigs can actually heat the pool. That's just one way of changing the way we think about things and actually helping the city, run more efficiently at a lower cost, and do something great for the environment. It's I look at I know. You guys are familiar with the narrative. It's really bad for the environment. But when you flare natural gas as a byproduct of oil production, repurposing that actually helps the environment. All the methane that leaks out of, our dumps and what have you, you repurpose that. It's actually great for the environment. Having Bitcoin miners take up all the excess demand on green power projects that are intermittent in nature, that don't pan out economically because they don't have enough demand. But you get the miners out there, all of a sudden these green projects make economic sense. Like this thing, like when we get that narrative out there, this should have broad-based support regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum. So we just have to educate people.
Yeah, and I think so. Before we sort of wrap things up here, I do want to extend, at least on our behalf, a helping hand. So obviously, we are not just a podcast; we're also a research firm. So if you guys ever need anything, let us know. We're happy to help. But just to touch a little bit on that previous question, are you currently in talks with any sort of members of parliament, other mayors around the Lower Mainland, or even premiers about Bitcoin? And if so, what's the sort of sentiment around it right now?
Yeah, you know what? With the province, we've been in discussions, and in their defense, they have a massive mandate on multiple levels, and so it's not hitting their priority list. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to, as a community, to let them know this should be a priority. And so I'm not knocking the provincial government at all. They've been great partners. When it comes to mayors, actually no mayors have reached out, but a bunch of mayors have actually taken pot shots. So that's the nature of politics. I don't think it's very constructive. It's kind of funny. I actually think of Ted Lasso, and there's the dart scene where a lot of people are judgmental, but people aren't curious. And I think people should be asking the question. So you did something that you knew was going to take a lot of political heat, and you have no stake in the outcome, right? Like whatever we do in the city of Vancouver will not benefit you. Why are you doing it? I think that's the question, but haven't received that call yet. So, we'll keep driving on. But, we've had a lot of interest from around the planet. People stepping up and saying they want to support. I'm going to be speaking at a couple of conferences over the next little while on the topic as well. And I just think the community is absolutely beautiful. I know it'll probably change as this gets massively adopted, but I feel like every single person I've met who's been orange pilled, they found religion and they just want to help and they're not looking for anything in return. And it's a beautiful community.
We couldn't agree more. Ken Sim, 41st Mayor of Vancouver. Thank you so much for joining us today, sharing with us your vision about Bitcoin and the future of your city. Please tell people where they should meet you, how they can get in touch with people in Vancouver about this topic.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just put my email address out there. It's ken.sim@vancouver.ca. So that once again, that's ken.sim@vancouver.ca. And if, my emails get screened, obviously, I literally get, hundreds upon hundreds every single day. So in the header, if they just want to put urgent-Bitcoin, I'll take a look at every single one of those.
That's absolutely fantastic. Ken, we really appreciate your transparency and for joining us here at the Bitcoin Layer today. We'll catch you guys next time.